I'm Cameron. Today I am joined by Sigi, and we've got Tomer from MTG Goldfish on voice chat with us. How you doing today, Tomer?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, thanks for joining. So Tomer had an idea. He's working on Niv-Mizzet Parun, and if you are wanting to look at it from a competitive perspective and then kind of push it on down to the budget end, there's a bunch of interesting combos you can still throw at Niv-Mizzet. And so today we're going to be brewing up a Niv-Mizzet Parun competitive deck, and then going to be handing it off to Tomer to attempt to budgetize that down to some cheap decks that hopefully will work at least along the same combo lines that we're looking at.
Keep the spirit of the list at the very least. See what
uh,
works, what doesn't at the $100, $50 mark.
yeah, and we've done a bunch of budgetizing in the past, and when you take a budgetless competitive deck, usually you're looking at 2 to 4 grand, and you can budget it down quite a bit. And the real core of the same gameplay kind of breaks off at about 750 to $1,000 is where you start having to make core deck adjustments, and you have to pull off portions of it and throw in some suboptimal budget options. And I going down further, you end up with like 1 or 2 primary lines. But I think Niv-Mizzet has enough of a being a finisher on his own that we should be able to stick with that fairly well.
Yeah, that's my theory with it as well. It's just, he seems like he has so much raw power once you actually land him
Mm-hmm.
that they can make mediocre cards look decent or turn into winners, even if it's not going to be the most optimal way of doing it on a competitive standpoint.
Oh
It
yeah,
might just be good enough that it's still going to be a terror at like more casual tables.
oh yeah. The only downside is you're going to have a very what am I trying to say? You're going to have a very visible game plan. It's land Niv-Mizzet then win. So everybody should be very aware of it after the first time they see the deck actually
Oh,
go
they
off.
better. That's my target number one. If I see Niv-Mizzet at like a remotely casual table, is the only correct option is kill
Kill
that
it.
person indiscriminately.
Oh, 100%.
Because you can't counter him.
Yeah.
You might be able to instant speed stop him, but you might not be able to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one of the big changes to look at when it comes to Niv-Mizzet from casual to competitive is that the density of creature removal in competitive is significantly lower. So I
Mm-hmm.
think one thing we can look at for this deck is that we construct the mana base in such a way that we can actually run out Niv-Mizzet even if we're not immediately trying to go off with him, because even then he still is a very strong value engine.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're going to be looking at more mana than we would typically do, and probably a lot more rocks and possibly some colorless rocks in case we're having to cast Niv-Mizzet 1 to 3 times within a game if he gets removed.
Yeah.
So the core combo around Niv-Mizzet is we're looking at Curiosity and Ophidian Eye and Tandem Lookout.
Yep.
Now, the big things with Curiosity and Ophidian Eye is that they both are a May ability. That whenever the enchanted creature deals damage to a player, you may draw a card. You miss it when you draw a card, deal damage to any target. So you draw a card, deal damage, draw a card, deal damage. Downside is you only have 100 cards in your deck, so we need some way of actually refreshing your deck. And with that, we've got a few routes. Go for it, Sigi.
Yeah. Another combo I think we can add is Dramatic Reversal, because the biggest challenge in with the Curiosity combo in an Izzet deck is being able to find the combo pieces. They are enchantments and creatures in this case, which blue-red can't really tutor for all that well, with the exception of very few tutor spells.
Mhm.
One we do get access to is Intuition. Conveniently, we've got 3 different cards that do the thing for us, so Intuition is quite good here.
Mhm.
Gamble is another one that can find it, so we should absolutely run those 2.
Mhm.
And besides that, I think even if it may be a bit awkward or more time consuming,
Mhm.
we also want to have tutors that are gonna let us find the tutors that find our win conditions.
Yeah,
So,
so mystical tutor, personal
yeah,
tutor.
Merchant Scroll.
Dizzy Spell is a good one to transmute.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's really good. I did not consider that one actually. On that same
Sometimes
note,
for budget, you gotta dig deep.
yeah, even the full power version of JVP High Tide actually plays Dizzy Spell.
Mm-hmm.
Funnily enough.
Well, there's 2 other transmutes. To
Mhm.
get Ophidian Eye and Tandem Lookout, you could run Drift of Phantasms.
Mm-hmm.
That's the 3 converter
That's a
mana
3
cost transmute.
CMC. Yeah.
Oh,
There's also
yeah.
Muddle the Mixture, but I don't
And-
know if there's anything you want to Oh, I guess
No, we
Isochron
definitely
Scepter
want Muddle.
itself.
Yeah, Muddle
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
really good tutor, just because it gets Dramatic Reversal and Isochron Scepter all on
Yeah.
its own.
And then
I'm also thinking of
by-
long-term plans.
long-term plans, maybe put it in brackets for now, because
Yeah.
that one's always a bit like, eh.
It is iffy.
It's a bit
I do
slow,
agree.
and you can't shuffle until you
Yeah.
actually draw the card.
True.
Now, what I do think we can look at as well for our tutor suite are artifact tutors. The reason for that
Yes.
is twofold. On one hand, we get Isochron Scepter and Paradox Engine. On the other, we also can use those to fix us into the colors we need for Niv-Mizzet. So for instance, if we're going to be running, say, a Gilded Lotus, then we can find that off our artifact tutors.
Yeah, so I've got Fabricate, Word of Invention, and Transmute Artifact. Do we probably want Reshape as well?
I think we can skip the reshape in this
Okay.
particular case, since not everything we do is going to be artifact, so we don't need to go quite as hard as like a Teferi deck. And reshape is definitely the worst of the bunch.
And we probably want Inventor's Fair.
Yeah, Inventor's Fair is like mostly free, so we can do that one.
Is Tezzeret the Seeker any good for this deck, or is he too slow?
I would actually really like him, because we're gonna have mana rocks in order to get Niv-Mizzet out. He'll help us power out Niv-Mizzet, and he'll also tutor for us.
It's a bit of a tough call. He's definitely a cool card. I think he's towards the bottom of the barrel though, because he can't get Paradox Engine, and he can't get Gilded Lotus, for instance. I definitely like him more than long-term plans though, so he's certainly worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, I got him down there. So off the bat, we've got our initial Curiosity Ophidian Eye combo. We've got Dramatic Reversal. I put Paradox Engine in there just because you have the ability of pairing Isochron Scepter with pretty much any other instant, and then you can do Paradox Engine shenanigans, like you can put in a Lightning Bolt, and then you just have an I win. It was an easy additional out that we had in Karanos, and I probably want to keep that in there as well.
I think I agree.
We probably also want Copy Artifact, and we probably also want Swan Song. So what I'm doing here is, rather than putting in these in like the counter spots, these are kind of just like easy include combo packages. So you can Copy Artifact as an Isochron Scepter. You have a Dramatic Reversal in one Isochron Scepter, and your Copy Artifact gets a Swan Song. You then can make Infinite Swans. We have any instant, sorcery, or enchantment on the stack. You cast Swan Song, target that. Then you Dramatic Reversal. You then cast Swan Song again, targeting your first Swan Song. Let that Swan Song resolve. Yeah, you now have a Swan, and you have your instant, sorcery, or enchantment on the stack. Dramatic Reversal again, and just rinse and repeat those steps, and now you can just make an infinite number of Swans.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's also, these cards have value on their own too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's the big
nice.
thing, is that they're individually really strong, but then they happen to just say I win when they're all together.
Yep.
Um,
Okay, so let's go back to the spell or like deck resetting thing for a moment. Time Twist is definitely gonna be our prime tool in that regard.
so
And
I had an
yeah,
option for that, but go ahead. Let's see. We got Time Twister.
so one thing I am looking at that could also combine with intuition in some potential corner cases
Mm-hmm.
is Mystic Retrieval.
Mm-hmm. So Mystic Retrieval, that's going to return the instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So you return Time Twister to your hand. You then cast Time Twister. You draw your deck. You get Mystic Retrieval. You basically just loop that. If it does have to get flat, if it does get flashback, you no longer have that option as the only downside there.
Yeah.
That's doable. Sure. There is the if I can spell today, sorry.
All good.
My idea was the good old mind over matter and an Eldrazi.
Oof.
So the reason why I'm thinking mind over matter is because mind over matter can also be a mana engine, discarding cards from your hand to untap mana rocks.
It's really expensive to put into play though.
It is. It is.
Like specifically at 6 mana it competes with exactly Niv-Mizzet, which I think is kind of a problem.
Okay. All right. That was my option. Do we want to do any other backups for Mystic Retrieval, like Call to Mind?
Call of Mine's a little bit cheaper. There's the cheapest one that's an instant or a sorcery is Flood of Recollection. That's 2-drop, but it always gets exiled.
Yeah, it exiles itself. We want one that
Yeah.
doesn't exile itself. And Mystic Retrieval has the flashback. It costs 4 for the front end, 2 and a red on the back end. For the flashback, Call to Mind is just 3 all the time. But it doesn't have the flashback option. We probably, do we want to add that in there, or would we want that instead of Mystic Retrieval?
Maybe we can add it to the list of like stuff we're wondering about.
Okay.
Generally speaking, I think getting one extra Time Twister should be enough for our purposes.
That is true.
So maybe we don't even need Mystic Retrieval and we can just do something else instead.
Okay.
But we'll have to see if like a useful card comes up.
All right. Do we want to go Staxy in order to delay the game out a little bit?
I don't think we want stacks with the exception of like free includes for us. So Cursed Totem, Grafdigger's Cage, more or less. I don't think we can afford back to basics because our mana base is going to be heavily reliant on multicolor lands.
Mm-hmm.
What
Blood
else do we
Moon.
have? Blood Moon, probably not, for the same reason.
Okay.
I could see Stranglehold if we want to go that high.
Stranglehold's not bad. We're probably gonna have a lot of mana rocks. What about like Winter Orb?
I think that's doing too much. Like, I have a feeling that the deck we're gonna build is gonna end up in a similar spot as something like Teferi, where we're kind of playing a control game.
Okay.
And we took Winter Orb out of Teferi because it actively hurts that control plan of being able to leave mana up and then untapping and having mana.
All right. I'm gonna cut these guys. I'm gonna save this really quick. You guys should be able to, if I can type Grafdigger's Cage, so it's just a single F. All right, you guys should be able to refresh the deck list and see what it's looking like right now. We're at 25 cards, including Niv-Mizzet. Now we don't have any lands. let's just do 15 islands, 15 mountains, just to even that out.
Do you guys have like a formula where you say, I want the deck to have X amount of mana, which includes ramp and lands?
Not strictly, but usually we're looking at like 43 to 45 total mana sources between lands and mana rocks and mana docks.
So we kind of have a blue core that is standard for competitive EDH. It's just the best stuff that's out there. We have cantrips, we've got Brainstorm, we've got Ponder, we've got Preordain. I think that's all we want to dump in for now. We could do more, but I mean, at that point, we're looking at like Sleight of Hand or Serum Visions, or we're looking at what's the 3 mana instant and you discard land, or you can...
Thirst for Knowledge is the one where you just cut an
Thirst.
artifact.
Yeah, that's it. Thirst. Actually, I think we want.
There's also compulsive research, I think. That's the one that ditches the land.
Yeah.
That one's sorcery, though, isn't it?
That one's sorcery, yeah. And then we have Frantic Search.
We've also got Fact or Fiction.
Throw that in for now.
A card I personally like a lot.
Okay. Now counterspells. Counterspell. We already have Swan Song.
Mana Drain.
Force of Will. Mana Drain.
Oh man, Preordain is 350 now?
Oh yeah.
Jesus.
Yikes. Oh yeah. And it's also banned everywhere except for what, Legacy and Commander. And
yeah.
Missed opportunity of Ultimate Masters.
Yeah. So yeah, it's Legacy, Vintage, and Commander is pretty much where it's legal. And yeah, it's expensive. I mean, it was also reprinted. It was C 2015. Yeah.
Commander 15, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Pact of Negation.
Dispel.
Flusterstorm. Dispel.
I don't think we want Spell Pierce. I've really not been a fan of that one in the slower decks lately.
Negate.
Yes, that's a good one.
Delay. Yep. I think that's enough for now. We can come back to it.
So it seems from your choice of counterspells, you're more afraid of non-creature spells over creature ones, correct? Like you just want to protect Niv-Mizzet from removal.
We want to protect Niv-Mizzet from removal, but we also want to stop other people from comboing off. That's actually our biggest concern.
Like probably the two key spells in the format are both instants in Ad Nauseam and Flash. So we at least want every counter spell we run to be able to hit those.
Yeah. And then
that makes sense.
On top of that, one of the downsides of both of those cards is that neither of those cards is actually the win con. They are just enablers. So after we've gotten past the Ad Naus and after we've gotten past the Flash, they still have the way to win the game in their hand or in their deck, and you still have to keep going.
Yep.
Let's see. Any other case? Spot removal. We have Lightning Bolt. We probably want a Pongify or a Rapid Hybridization.
I'd say we want Reality Shift.
Oh yeah, Reality
instead
Shift
of the second one of those.
Yeah, and we'll do Rapid Hybridization because it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah. Because Reality Shift can be another thing you put under the second Isochron Scepter if people have creatures out.
And then you can just exile everybody's deck. That's good removal. We've got counterspells. We've got card draw.
Do you do any artifact removal? Like Vandal Blast by Force?
I haven't really been liking those lately. The reason behind that is a bit difficult. Like, artifact removal in general is decent, but I'm personally not really a fan of removal that targets people's access to mana that only hits one type of mana between lands, mana rocks, and mana dogs. Because the prevalent Thrasios Tymna decks have all been playing a mix of mana rocks and mana dogs. So shutting them off or targeting only 1/3 of their mana base in a mana denial plan hasn't really been effective.
Got a few question options in there. There's Vandal Blast. There's Byforce. There's also Meltdown, which is pretty good. Then we also have a Braid, which that one is a little bit more of a possible include because it also hits creatures. And I kind of like a Braid because it also acts as a secondary lightning bolt. It doesn't kill people, but it's something that you can dump on an Isochron Scepter. I'll put that in the question marks for now.
Rolling Earthquake is another good one.
That one is good,
for the board wipes. And we can probably consider Literal Pyroclasm if we want.
Pyroclasm or Anger of the Gods. So the difference, Anger of the Gods deals 3, it also exiles, but it costs 3.
Yeah. We also have, in theory, if we want to go more on the instant speed route, stuff like Fiery Cannonade or Kozilek's Return, which are both 2 at instant speed, 4/2 in the red, if I recall correctly.
For flexible answers, do you guys like Izzet Charm? Because it can shock a creature or stop a non-creature spell.
Izzet Charm might be worth looking at, yeah.
I did play it in Keranos. It does give you card selection, it gives you removal, and a non-creature 2, or they have to pay 2 more?
Yeah. Okay. It's not the best at either thing, but it can also loot for cycle.
It's is it cycle or is it? I thought it was draw 2.
Draw 2, discard
pitch 2. Yeah. Sure, we can throw Izzet Charm in there for now.
Yeah, seems fine.
Got a few in the question mark column we can hit. Now let's hit Mana Rocks.
Yeah. So first, the standard package.
Flooring, Mana Crypt, Mox Diamond.
I think we do Vault, but we don't do Grim or Basalt Monolith. Because we don't have that many, colorless costs for payoff. Yeah. And I think something like a Gilded Lotus on the top end, or something like a Sky Diamond. Is that the 2 CMC one that enters that taps for color?
No, that one taps for blue. I would rather do Cold Steel Heart.
Yeah, Cold Steel Heart, and we could consider Corrupted Graphstone if we want.
Which one's that one? Corrupted Graphstone. ETB's tapped. Color of a card in your graveyard. I would definitely put in the Welfare Stone before that.
Fellwar.
Corrupted Graphstone, that's not bad.
I guess it's pretty consistent considering if you're running a lot of cantrips.
Yeah.
But I guess it depends on how many cantrips you're going to be going for.
Yeah, that and red cards that actually hit the bin. I don't know how many we have. Speaking of which, we need a Wheel of Fortune in here.
Yeah, and a Pyroblast. That's the one we forgot earlier for counterspells.
Yes, and do we want to put in a red Elemental Blast as well?
I think we can for now. Oh, Mental Misstep.
Yes.
That's the one we forgot.
Why don't you just pull up your coat, your tome of counterspells, and we can go through them all really quick just to make sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're the one that wrote 16,000 words on it.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. See, The thing is always I do something like that so that I don't have to remember these things, but then I never end up
Remember to
using the
look it up.
thing, and I
Yeah.
still forget.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got Force, Pact, Mental Misstep. Misdirection is one we could consider.
Yeah. Okay. What's up? What else?
No, I'm not really feeling any of those. We've got those. Do we want a stifle effect?
Ooh. It's another way around Flash Hulk. But I mean, if we do we want Stifle? Do we want Trick Bind?
Tough call.
Sure, I'll put a Trick Bind in for now.
I think if we want one, then Trick Bind, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's all for counterspells.
Okay. I'll put Misdirection down on the question marks. Now we've got counterspells, we've got cantrips, we've got mana rocks. We haven't touched the land base yet, but that was kind of trivial. Enchantments. Mystic
Yes.
Remora, Mystic Study. Are there any red value enchantments we want to add in? There's not many that I can think of off the top of my head. There just really aren't any run. So beyond Mystic Remora and Mystic Study, do we want to do something trolly like Mana Maze?
Probably not.
Okay. We're not doing back to basics. Arcane Lab?
No. God, no.
That nukes us.
Yeah.
Is there like Jace's Sanctum? Those effects not good enough?
It's a bit overcosted for what it does. If we want a cost reduction effect, which I think we might end up wanting one, we'll probably play Boral.
Yeah. Yeah. Creatures were up next. So Jace's Sanctum costing 4 kind of hurts. Yeah. I think we can leave it there for now. Creature wise, we probably want a few wizards. Do you want Jace Vryn's Prodigy?
I don't actually think we do, seeing as we're running Curse Totem.
That's a good point. So we've got Brawl. We got Snapcaster.
We could do. We could do Consecrated Sphinx.
Consecrated Sphinx could work. I probably would like Nezahal more.
That's also an option. Does Nezahal have flash?
No. But Nezahal protects itself. And he also gives us no max hand size. He costs one more. I put Spellseeker in. Why don't we'll put Consecrated. So Consecrated Sphinx, the downside with it is either it sticks around and you have all of the cards, or it dies immediately and you draw 0.
Yeah.
Nezahal, he's more consistent. I'll put Nezahal in for now.
He's probably better for the purposes of this deck.
Yep. Spellseeker, Snapcaster, Brawl. Any others? Do we want any of the Mana Dorks? Do we want Augur of Bolus?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Let's see. Are there any other good blue creatures? Or red ones, or blue-red ones?
It's like Young Pyromancer tokens. But I don't know if that kind of promotes the game plan.
It can and it can't at the same time. the thing is, aggro doesn't super work in competitive EDH unless you're running really big stax elements to delay out the game. It's where Blood Pod works, where it really snowballs itself out. Let me just check. I'm looking through a few old decks that I've pulled up that are in these colors, just to see, make sure that we're not missing anything like super obvious. This is kind of the challenge of it all. Downside with live brews in general is that sometimes you just miss stuff, and there's really obvious things that can happen. So we haven't hit Cyclonic Rift that I know you want in the deck.
Oh yeah, I mean, if we want to do staples real quick, dig through time.
Do we want Treasure Cruise?
It's hard to say.
We do want Windfall.
Yeah. What about Future Sight?
That was kind of on the question lines I was thinking. All right, the mana dork I was thinking of was Curious Homunculus.
Oh yeah, that guy.
That one is actually pretty good.
Once again, we do want to minimize anti-synergy with Curse Totem though, because that's a card I can actually see us tutoring for in several games.
So the thing is that I like about him is that you don't need to tap him ever to actually get him to flip. So he does tap, he gets you a colorless to cast on an instant or sorcery, and then on your upkeep, if there's 3 or more instants or sorceries in the bin, you transform him, and then he has all your instants and sorceries costing 1 less.
What about Goblin Electromancer on that note then?
Electromancer would probably be the easier one if we want another cost reducer.
Yeah, that is true.
Not quite sure if we do though. That's something we'll have to see.
Yeah. Let's see. Did we have mission briefing in here yet? We don't. We probably want mission briefing. And we probably also want Chaos Warp as a catch-all removal spell.
Also, on the note of ramp,
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering what your thoughts are on the red rituals for this deck, because generally speaking, they're never played, but Niv-Mizzet does turn them into cantrips. Does that make them good enough, or are they still subpar?
So the challenge is that you're probably going to be ritualing out Niv-Mizzet, so they're not necessarily going to replace themselves in that same way. I was iffy on those at the start. Most of them, they're all, 2 to generate 3 or 3 to generate 5?
Yeah, they're 2 to make 3 usually.
Yeah.
And I'm not really feeling them. I'd rather build the overall mana base in a way that we can just make enough blue and red mana.
Yeah. Just double checking. Impulse.
Oh yeah. Let me just open to Ferry. I think.
Yeah, I'm just double checking, and like Capsize is another one that we might want to consider.
Chain of Vapor.
Yeah.
Chain of Vapor is good.
Do we want more bounce spells?
That's what I was saying, Capsize. Beyond that, we don't want to run like Boomerang or anything like that.
Yeah.
There's one cute one that I always like running every once in a while, Submerge. I don't know if it's a bit too cute.
I love Submerge.
Sigi's been liking that a lot recently. Are we wanting to do Chromox? We didn't really hit that. Yeah.
I think we want like every colored rock we can play, we're probably gonna want Mox Opal.
Yep, Mox Opal. Lotus Petal?
Nah, I don't think
Okay.
we need that one.
Simeon Spirit Guide?
Probably not as well. I'd try to avoid the single use ones.
Okay, Oh, go for it.
Yeah.
I threw in Gilded Drake.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Do we want to consider Torpor Orb?
It doesn't really do that much from my experience. There aren't that many decks that are hit by Torpor Orb.
That's true. It is fallen out.
I mean, it's something we can look at, like, for the maybe board. Oh, Prismatic Lens. We should probably run that.
Sure. Shackles?
I think that could be another maybe board card.
Okay. All right. Let's double
Do we want
check.
Memory Jar?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's a one-shot refill. Huh.
Yeah,
Let's put it in maybe, and we can come back at it.
that sounds good.
Okay. So we kind of just threw a bunch of cards at this, and a lot of these are just auto includes that we always will throw in. I'm gonna save this. We'll see where we're at card quantity wise, and if I can type in Oops, if I there we go, that should be it. Prismatic. Nope, I'm really bad. Yeah, there we are. Prismatic lens. All right. There's just no E. That was it. And where did I put in Snapcaster or Mage? All right, it should be updated. You guys can take a look at it. I'm actually just gonna pop out and we can look at where we are in general.
109 cards. That's a reasonable start.
That actually is. Yeah. So that is at 31 land. We can look at that elsewhere. Let's see. I'm just going through all of these, double checking everything that we have in here, and we also have it looks like 12 cards in the maybe board to look at.
I think the one thing that always boggles my mind is I never ran the numbers on Mox Diamond. Like, how many lanes do you run before you feel comfortable with Mox Diamond, and how many times does it burn you in a game?
So the big thing with competitive EDH is that you're looking at bursty mana advantage. The biggest changes that you'll get in the game are in the first 3 turns. That's the most uncertainty that you will ever get. And so you are perfectly fine if you Mox Diamonds in your opening hand and you have a land and you have another land, having 2 mana on turn 1 is huge. And you're totally fine just pitching that land. Numbers wise, it's more of a, if I get a free mana advantage, it's perfectly fine discarding a card. It's why Gemstone Caverns is worth running. It's because you're having that mana advantage is worth losing the land or losing the extra card in your hand. Sigi, have you done numbers on it at all?
I have not. I just tend to auto-include Mox Diamond.
But do you ever go down to, like, you have a 30 lane deck or something, you're running Mox Diamond, and you have 2 lands in your hand, so you keep it, it's a good hand, and then turn 3 rolls around, and you're like, I need that third land. Whoops, it's a Mox Diamond.
It's happened before, but it doesn't happen too often.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much just draw power baked into competitive decks usually that making your land drops is not particularly hard. And as Cameron mentioned, the burst mana advantage to like be the first to run out your early game mana engines, etc., usually makes up for that small percentage of games where you don't have access to another land plus Mox Diamond.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it costs 0. It's a mana rock, and it's hash for any color.
Yeah.
Seems pretty good. I was just wondering, like, where, like, the land wise, do you ever go underneath 30 lands for your decks?
Yeah.
Or
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
you do?
Yeah, some of the so one of the strategies is generally it's like turbo ad nos, and you'll see some turbo ad nos decks where your average converted mana cost for the entire deck is like 0.9, and they will be running like 24, 25 lands in the entire deck, and they'll still run Mox Diamond.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. No, it's all about getting more mana out sooner. I mean, the command zone did their numbers crunch, and they had the whole more lands in play. That still happens, but from a competitive EDH perspective, you have the level of the spells at the cost is such a huge difference than what you're usually seeing in casual. So at 3 mana, you can Time Twister. So if you have a hand that is like Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Mox Diamond, 2 lands, and a Twister, you are the happiest person in the world. You literally dump your hand turn 1, you cast Time Twister, and the next turn you're untapping with 6, 7 mana, and you have a full hand.
Yeah.
And I mean that's kind of a god hand scenario, but it's just the fact that you can push so much stuff out. I mean, if you had an island and a Mana Crypt, you can turn 1 Rhystic Study, and then you're drawing cards off of everybody's mana dorks. So it's all in all, it's a really big rush to get fast mana out as soon as possible, and not including Mox Diamond it's really hard to have a reason not to include it. And low land isn't a consideration. Like, the biggest reason people don't include Mox Diamond is because they're running Stony Silence and Null Rod.
Also, if they can't afford it, that's
true.
Unfortunately, another very big reason.
It is $210 right now, which is stupid.
And climbing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just gone up. So we've got 109 cards. We need to cut some stuff. We have a bunch of cards on the maybe board, and we also need to do the lands. And then I kind of want to do a holistic rundown on all the cards we have in the deck, and kind of just do some numbers crunch to make sure we aren't overloaded on something.
I've also got a few more cards that might be worth looking at before we make cuts. Specifically, Trinket Mage.
Oh, yeah. We should have that in there.
Gitaxian Probe. Was I thinking? Nope. I think everything else I'm thinking of was gonna be potential cuts.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Wait, for Trinket Mage, is that more like I can Trinket Mage and grab my Mox Diamond? Or is it going for anything particular?
So it's a bit of a toolbox. You get like mana rocks if you want them. You can also get Sensei's Divining Top, and you can get Grafdigger's Cage.
Yeah.
So it's like just in our deck, it's basically just a second copy of Fabricate, just worse.
It's a little bit worse, yeah, but it's getting the majority of the same cards that we'd be looking at getting. The one thing it doesn't hit is Isochron Scepter. That's the really, really big thing that it doesn't hit.
So other stuff we could look at including, now that we've got like a rough picture of the whole deck, would be maybe we do go back to Grim Monolith, because it does look like we've got a few more expensive cards in there now. Another one would be maybe a draw X spell like a Stroke of Genius could be an option.
Okay.
Though I'm
That's
not
also
100% sure on that one.
Yeah. Let's hit lands really quick. Utility lands wise, are we wanting something like Academy Ruins?
I don't think we need Ruins here, or Buried Ruin.
What about Workshop?
No, absolutely
Okay.
not.
We've got Ancient Tomb we definitely want.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do the fetches. Arid Mesa, Bloodstained Mire, Flooded Strand, Misty Rainforest, Polluted Delta, Scalding Tarn, Flooded Foothills, Steam Vents, Volcanic Island.
Mm-hmm. We probably want to reach into like Cascade Bluffs, yeah.
Cascade Bluffs.
And what's the Sulphur Falls? Is that the Checkland?
Believe so, yeah.
Yep.
Do we want any other blue-red dual lands, or are we already going into rainbow lands?
I think
do you want Shivan Reef?
Shivan Reef is pain. Yeah, that's
Oh
fine.
yeah, definitely.
But that's gonna be the same as City of Brass, Mana Confluence.
Oh, there's Cascade Bluffs. Oh, you got it.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, we're good.
We want Exotic Orchard.
Yep.
Forbidden Orchard.
Command Tower?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I always forget Command Tower.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we have? So we probably don't want Reflecting Pool, we don't want Gemstone Mine.
Do we want Gemstone Caverns?
I'm not sure.
Exiling a card from our opening hand to get one extra. Does it have any other conditions? I'm just double checking. It's been a while since I've played it.
Yeah, if we're not going
So-
first.
Yeah, if we're not going first, we can skip it for now.
Yeah. I tend to not like it as much in slower decks.
What about Cycling Lands? Lonely Sandbar.
Probably not.
Okay.
They just don't really have much value if you don't if you're not, say, a Rule of Law deck, or you're a
Yeah.
Loam deck or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And we don't want fast lands, those just aren't really there. And we
Will
don't
this deck
have...
be running High Tide?
That's I've been wondering about that leading up to this. I don't think we want to be on High Tide, or like we can afford to be on High Tide, but we might take another look after we've made our lists of lands.
What about Cephalid Coliseum?
That one should be fine. I like that because it's also, with Niv-Mizzet out, it's just a lightning bolt in effect.
Yeah, I do like that too. Do we want any of the other card draw lands?
You mean like Desolate Lighthouse?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Okay.
I think.
I
think I'd rather have color access than another inefficient draw spell.
Yeah, that's true. We don't have enough.
Strip Mine useful?
Yes, it is.
Strip Mine is decent, but it's a really tough call because there aren't that many lands that you really want to hit with it. Like, hitting a Gaia's Cradle is nice, but at the same time, it eats up your land drop that you'd need to develop your own stuff. And usually, with the way competitive EDH decks are built to like work on fairly small amounts of mana, the Cradle doesn't actually give that much of a benefit, and we're not particularly vulnerable to something like a Tabernacle either that we'd need to defend ourselves from.
What about Tolaria West? I don't think we really have anything big that we need to get at 0 besides possibly a pact.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah. I think that's the majority of the lands. Ooh. Ascanta? Do we want to search?
I like the card, but I don't think it's good enough for EDH.
I love it in Tasker. It's still doing tons of work. But I totally see it not being here.
I mean, it's we can put it as like a maybe thing, because one of the main reasons why I ended up not playing it in Teferi is just because of back to basics.
Yeah.
Which,
but we're not running it here. I'll put it in the maybe board for now. Okay. So that drops
Future Sight. Maybe we should
consider that. Yeah. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16. So we're at 20-ish there. Let's drop that down to, I'm gonna say 8 and 2 because that's just my guess. And I apparently cannot spell it all today. I apologize. Bloodstained Mire. Forbidden Rochard. It's been one of those days. All right, updated. And at 30 land, and we have way more land that are red than we actually need.
Yeah, but that's all just for Niv, more or less.
Yeah. Do we even need any basic mountains?
Probably not, no.
Yeah, I think we can just cut the basic mountains.
Although I guess maybe one. Just to
one from Path to Exile.
Path isn't really run, because ramping your opponents is actually a really big challenge. You don't want to do that.
Yeah, I think we want the one mountain just to like be able to make a third red mana off our fetch lands.
Yeah, that's true.
But there's only so many dual lands that you can fetch in Izzet colors, right?
We just have Steam Vents and Volcanic. So yeah, one mountain seems good. That puts us at 30 lands. We have 113 cards in the deck and a bunch in the maybe board. Okay. Do we want all 3 parts of Curiosity, Ophidian Eye, and Tandem Lookout?
Yeah.
We do want
we
all
need
of those
because of intuition.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, we've got Merchant Scroll.
Looking at, actually, you know what? I just want to take another look at both Goblin Electromancer and Baral to make sure that we're going to get good value for the.
Yeah, I think we may end up cutting the Electromancer.
Yeah, I do agree on that.
Just like from gut feeling.
Just also just looking at the converted mana cost, yeah.
So we've got a few 2-drops that we're gonna get discounts on. a few 3-drop. Actually, most of the 3-drop spells will get discounts. And then everything above that we will. I think we could drop the Electromancer, but keep Brawl.
Sounds good.
What would you say is the average toughness of creatures that you come across that you would want to kill?
2.
And 2?
2 or 3. So
Okay.
2 hits Timna, 3 hits Thrasios. So there's
I have a janky card that
what's that?
on your opinion, Electrode. It's a pet card of mine. But I was thinking
this
if
guy.
competitive, yeah, if your decks or if your tables have a lot of mana dorks and everything, then he is 3 mana, so he is a little bit slow, but he kind of just machine guns down any mana dork in his way, and he can get 2 and 3 toughness if you pair him with cantrips.
So rather than including him, I would kind of I would aim at getting Niv-Mizzet out faster, because if you don't have the wind with Niv-Mizzet, basically the table is going to be casting instants and sorceries, and they will allow you to kill off the mana for the rest of the table. So while I have played Electro before, not really here for competitive.
Yeah, I mean, at my casual tables, he's not good enough either because there's just not a lot of mana dorks to kill, and he just doesn't have a lot of targets. So I was thinking maybe in competitive, I don't know.
If you were in a if you were kind of in between, if you were in like a higher power area, and you were facing against like some semi blood pod type decks or Derevi decks, he might work. Yeah,
or Apostle Cannon.
Yeah, Apostle Cannon. Yeah, definitely in like if you're going against some of the competitive commanders of old that have fallen out, and they're kind of like in tier 2 or tier 3 status, those guys. A lot of the hate bears decks have 1 or 2 toughness across the board, and Electrode could see play there. I'm thinking of chopping Corrupted Graphstone. I'm not that or Prismatic Lens.
I think if we drop 1, then it's probably Graphstone. Yeah.
No.
Okay. I could see us going down for Graphstone. Should be fine. I'm also looking at the creatures.
Is there a button to put them into the sideboard, maybe?
No? There is not, unfortunately, but I can.
Because I was gonna take the deck afterwards and pop it into the goldfish, just because it's a little bit easier for me to see the prices.
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, I gotcha. Corrupted Graphstone will hit there. What was the one you were saying, Ziggy? You were saying creatures?
Yeah. So, one thing we need to think about is Mission Briefing and Snapcaster Mage, considering we're running Grafdigger's Cage.
True.
If we're like taking a page out of the Teferi book, we've recently ended up cutting our Snapcaster Mage there because of the anti-synergy with Grafdigger's Cage, since that's another card that, thanks to the prevalence of Hulk, we want to try to find in most of our games if we can, and it's probably going to be similar here.
Okay. Why don't we'll pull both of those into the maybe board for now.
Sounds good. And for
Snapcaster.
Nezahul's kind of a really tough call. Like, do you think we're gonna be able to afford tapping 7 mana at sorcery speed?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, at that point, we might as well just cast Niv-Mizzet. But the benefit of Nezahul is that we could rush him out with like Grim Monolith and Mana Vault.
Also true.
I think keeping him in isn't a bad thing. I think I'd want to look at other cuts first, just because he's a nice in the deck card draw option that doesn't require the triple blue, triple red that Niv-Mizzet does.
That makes sense, yeah.
We don't have any way of speeding him out, is the only thing besides. I mean, we don't have any way of tutoring him up, so we have to draw him. I'm okay with that staying in there for now.
We can go back to it if we're down to like 102 cards and we desperately need a cut.
Yeah, okay. Let's look at the instant speed removal, just see how many things we have in there right now. We've got Submerge, we've got Reality Shift, Lightning Bolts, Izzet Charm, we have Cyclonic Rift, Chaos Warp, Chain of Vapor, Capsize, and Submerge. I think we could cut a few of those. I think we probably could cut one or two of those. I think Capsize could go.
Probably, yeah.
Which other one do you think?
Do we need Lightning Bolt?
So Lightning Bolt is a non-Niv-Mizzet Doc's Engine win. Izzet Charm doesn't do that because it doesn't hit players. Lightning Bolt does kill Thrasios. I would probably drop Submerge myself first.
That's probably fair.
Because I think the ability of just winning is a little bit better than putting a creature on top of their owner's library.
Yeah, that's...
Let me see.
That does seem fine.
Okay. Card draw. We added a few afterwards just to kind of do things. Let's just double check those. Brainstorm, dig through time, fact, frantic search impulse, Izzet Charm.
We might be able to drop Frantic Search since we're not doing High Tide or any sort of stormy stuff.
Yeah, I'm fine doing that as well. I'll move that over. Sorcery wise, get probe. I kind of like Mystic Retrieval's good.
Personal Tutor can go, I think.
I think Personal Tutor can go as well.
Reason being that we just don't have a lot of good things to be getting with it.
Yeah. So Frantic Search and Personal Tutor moving over. Where does that put us now? It's saving, and you guys should be able to update it. 105.
Okay.
Getting there.
Yeah.
This is where it starts getting tough, though.
Pyroclasm versus Rolling Earthquake.
They're somewhat different in what they do.
Yeah.
I think including both is okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you get to a spot where you can't win the game, you theoretically can get enough mana to Rolling Earthquake and kill everybody, and it's a draw, which is not a loss. So there's that option. Artifacts, I'm just double checking. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are at 43 mana sources with land and artifacts. That's fine. So tutors. We got Dizzy Spell, which we want to keep because it gets us the Curiosity and Ophidian Eye. No, Ophidian Eye's 3.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a tutor for Ophidian Eye. We just have a tutor for Curiosity.
There's Drift of Phantasms, which is another transmute. It gets Tandem
Yeah.
Knockout or Ophidian Eye.
We could try to work that in, maybe. Let's see, what do we have at 1 mana that's good? We've got a bunch of counterspells, Chain of Vapor, we've got Grafdigger's Cage, and like all the Trinket Mage stuff in general. We've got Gamble, so it...
Mystic Remora.
Oh yeah, good one.
We also have Tutor, Mystical Tutor.
So Dizzy Spell does open up a good amount of cards.
And hits
in
top
our deck
as well. Yeah. 3. That's really just getting those 2. I mean, there's also Wheel and Whir and Twister.
I think we can skip the 3 mana one, but Dizzy Spell is quite good.
Yeah, Dizzy Spell's good enough. And we've got Muddle at 2. Just double checking all of our 2-drops, making sure there isn't anything else. Izzet Charm just kind of sticks out as something that it does a bunch of stuff, but it doesn't do any of them great.
Yeah, I agree. Like, we're not running Spell Pierce because paying 2 extra is usually not an obstacle. We're not running something like Faithless Looting. We just cut Frantic Search.
Yeah, I think Izzet Charm, and I'm thinking Trickbind can move over to the maybe board for now as well, because that's having that is more of a meta include.
Yeah, I agree. What else could we look at? So
we're looking at some of the bigger includes now for the final removals, which would probably be Future Sight.
So I'm kind of looking at
Nezahal.
Future Sight, Nezahal, and Stroke of Genius. I think we can drop at least one of them.
And we need to drop 3 total cards.
I mean, we could also drop all 3. But the question is if that's the correct move.
I think I like Future Sight the most out of all of those.
Yeah, same. It's the least, like, investment, so to speak. Stroke of Genius is kind of in a difficult spot, because something that's happened to me in Teferi is that I play out most of my hand over the course of a couple of turns. Because I have a Future Sight and not Future Sight, a Stroke of Genius in hand, and I'm kind of relying on that one to refill, and then somebody counters it, and I'm kind of just sat there without cards in hand.
Yeah. And that always sucks. Okay. What's our average CMC? 2.08. That's not bad.
One
more.
Cut.
Also, for Stroke of Genius, is there a reason behind running that over Pull from Tomorrow?
It targets other people.
Yeah, you can. If you get infinite mana, you can kill people with it.
Does this deck do infinite mana? I guess so with Paradox Engine. Yeah.
So you have,
and Dramatic Reversal. Yeah. Makes sense.
So you have Dramatic Reversal. You've got Sensei's Top that just lets you draw your deck at that point. You've got Paradox Engine. Yeah, it can get infinite mana fairly well. Okay, so I think our artifacts are really solid. I don't think we need to cut anything there. I think our enchantments are solid too. There's nothing really to cut there. Creatures. What's Spellseeker getting us? I just threw it in there because it was probably one of the better ones that we got. So
it gets us Dizzy Spell, for instance. It gets us all the interaction. It gets us cantrips.
Gets us
It can
gamble.
also, yeah. Also dramatic reversal, of course.
Yeah. I think Spellseeker is definitely worth keeping. Hmm. All right.
Also
So
Pyroclasm if we really need it.
yeah. We're at what? One more cut. This is where it's hard, and this is where everybody also says cut an island.
It's the easiest way out. Just cut lands.
That is the easiest way. I think Chaos Warp could go. What are your thoughts on that, Sigi?
It is the least efficient removal spell for sure. Yeah. So, what can we not hit in this deck right now? Are there any
Planeswalkers? We can only bolt a Planeswalker.
Yeah.
Or use Niv-Mizzet.
Planeswalkers
and Rolling
aren't that great.
hits it too.
Enchantments. We only have bounce for enchantments.
Are there any enchantments we care about? I guess Rule of Law is really annoying.
Yeah.
But people tend to play like Eidolon before that. What else do we have?
We don't have any real artifact removal.
Are there any artifacts we care about that people play?
Null Rod.
That's a big one.
Could Lightning Bolt be swapped out for a Braid? Or they have different functions?
So Lightning Bolt can hit players, a Braid can't.
All right. That's annoying.
And then so the big concerns we have are okay, let me think. So not drawing cards, because we need to do that for Niv-Mizzet. So we have Spirit of the Labyrinth, which doesn't really see play, and we have Notion Thief. But we can just kill Thief with Niv-Mizzet, so we don't care about that. Not having mana is going to be Stony Silence and Null Rod. So we need to have artifact removal, and our only real answer for Stony Silence is going to be bounce it and counter it. We don't have any other way of getting around that, do we?
Do we need as many artifact tutors as we have? Could we maybe get away with just Fabricate and Transmute and drop the Whir of Invention?
I would probably drop Trinket Mage first.
That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I would drop Trinket Mage, but that still doesn't get around. We need to get some sort of artifact removal in here. Vandal Blast does it.
I think if we
does it.
I think we're fine if we leave in Chaos Warp.
Okay. But could Chaos Warp be a Vandal Blast or an Abrade? Or having it as Chaos Warp would be better because it could also hit Stony Silence.
Yeah.
And it could also hit Arcane Lab.
We need the third thing to do an intuition pile of Chaos Warp, Chain of Vapor, Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah, okay. So drop Trinket Mage. And then we can do a quick rundown on the deck and some of the reasons why some of these cards that we have on our maybe board could be elsewhere. And the scenarios where those would be. Okay. Overall CMC, we dropped a 100th, so we're at 2.08, 2.07. Good, we're at 100 cards. We've got a commander. All right, so primary combo of Ophidian Eye / Curiosity / Tandem Lookout. Do we have a way out of Tandem Lookout?
Yeah, we kill it with Niv-Mizzet.
Oh, yeah, good point. Or we bounce it because we're drawing our deck.
No,
Okay.
that's really that's clean.
Yeah, all right. That makes it easy. Then we have... Oh, actually, Tandem Lookout is just... We hit a creature and we get out of it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that also
yeah.
works.
So we just poke a creature, but we could poke Tandem Lookout. We could poke Niv-Mizzet. Yeah. All right. So that's the way we get out of that. That's easy enough. That's our primary combo. We also have Dramatic Reversal. We have Paradox Engine, which are just let us go infinite mana. They also allow us to do things like draw our deck with Sensei's Divining Top. We have our Copy Artifact and our Swan Song. I'm pretty happy with where we're at here overall.
Yeah, same. I
Now,
think
I'll go for
we
it.
have a good density of tutors. We have just good cards in general.
Mm-hmm. So just this maybe board really quick. These are all ones that we brought up. Just want to go through these and reasons, places where we would put these in. The big thing is that we're kind of brewing for the meta as a whole. So we're talking about every competitive deck out there. We're considering Sylvala Brostorm next to Chainveil Teferi and next to Breakfast Hulk or whatever Flash Hulk decks are out there right now. And this is kind of aimed at that as a whole, but then your local people you play with are going to have a different setup. They might be 4 players all playing Blood Pod, and you have no way of getting around that. So a braid, you're looking at seeing Null Rod more often. That's your biggest thing, and also just more Tymna decks. Capsize is kind of just a catch-all. It's just not as good as some of the other options. This would probably be a more stacks meta that you would want to capsize in, so that you could pick off a single piece and then you could wheel it away or something like that. Any of our pyroclasms, fire cannonades, all of those are going to be more for decks where you have a lot of aggro or mana dorks. So if you're still playing against an Edric deck and they've got a bunch of little guys that are coming at you to draw cards, you're playing in mostly green base pods where you've got a lot of mana dorks you're going to kill, or any blood pod environment you want to get rid of their creatures as soon as possible. Times for Frantic Search. I don't really know if there's any really big spots for Frantic Search.
Yeah, I think Search is a charm, long-term plans, Misdirection are just not really needed overall. Maybe Misdirection in like a really counter-heavy meta.
Yeah.
Or no, not counter-heavy because Niv-Mizzet can't be countered, but in one where people just play a lot of spot removal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely spot removal. That would be good. It's also budget include. It's a budget pact where you're trying to counter a counterspell.
Yep,
makes sense.
Mission Briefing and Snapcaster Mage, they're kind of cut for dis-synergy, but they totally could see play.
yeah.
They're
Like
really
if you
solid cards. Yeah.
if nobody in your meta is running graveyard stuff, then you can cut Grafdigger's Cage and Mystic Retrieval and just run those two instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stroke of Genius, it's an alternative win con. We already have a few of those in the deck. And the ones that we do have are a little bit more individually useful. So it's kind of just fallen to the wayside. It's not as great. Submerge and Trickbind, these are going to be more meta dependent if you really need a stifle effect, which we really don't right now. Submerge, putting a creature on top of their library, that probably would be more of a
yeah, I was thinking like Reanimator, but specifically not Razaketh. So if people reanimate like a Jin Gitaxias or something like that, it's good versus that.
Yep. Strip Mine, if you're going against Glacial Chasm. that's about it, and that's really pretty rare. Again, that's going to be more in aggro heavy metas, but that's about the only real way that we have to get around that besides other forms of bounce, and the forms of bounce that we currently have in the deck don't hit lands.
Yeah.
So that's your main reason to include a strip mine. Stranglehold, it's good. It's just expensive. Shutting off people's land drops, shutting off people's fetch lands is really great. If you can rush it out, it's good. It just didn't really fit to the theme that we were looking at.
Yeah. So another big thing about Stranglehold, specifically in comparison to even Mind Sensor, which has been gaining a lot of popularity lately, is that thanks to Mind Sensor having Flash, you can always use it in a situation where people are already expending those resources.
Yeah.
So they're already cracking a fetch, they're already using a tutor, and you can flash Mind Sensor in response to sort of get them and put them behind on tempo, advantage, etc.
Stranglehold is
doesn't
just
have that.
Yeah, they know about it. They just don't cast the spell and it sits in their hand. It's rather than acting as a counter spell, it's just a stax piece that prevents them from doing what they want to do. Vandal Blast, again, null rod areas. Personal Tutor, it's okay. It's not the best. It's only getting sorcery cards, so we're kind of limited on what we can get, and all of our other tutors are getting more for us. Call to Mind, if you need another Mystic Retrieval, it's your best option that doesn't exile itself. There is another one that costs 1 blue and a blue. That was a really old one. I think it was like in 6th edition.
Oh man.
But
what's the name of that one?
It has the exact same wording.
Yeah.
Relearn.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
And we're not looking for that situation. We're also not looking like at Archaeomancer, which if you're in a slower meta and you have like Capsize and you could do an Archaeomancer lock with Capsize, but we're not really built for that, and it's too slow. So not really looking at that. Anger of the Gods, again, aggro metas, ones where they have a lot of hate bears. The best part about Anger is that it exiles the creature, so they can't just reshuffle their deck and get them back, and you have to fight them all over again.
Yeah.
Shackles. This one, it's one that I kind of want to go back and look at the deck again, but I don't really know what I would cut. So this would be, if I cut something, it'd be like a dispel, or it'd be a counterspell that I would probably cut just to get other value creatures. But again, you have to have value creatures. Yeah. So
we also don't have as many islands here, or like as reliably islands as I do into Ferry.
Yeah, that's
the upside of Vedalken Shackles is always that you can find it with your artifact tutors. That's kind of what makes it good.
Yeah. So the big thing that like I would be looking at stealing with a Vedalken Shackles would be a commander from a commander-centric deck. So like a Selvala, or even stealing a Thrasios from somebody is really strong and really easy. Yeah. The other thing is like a Notion Thief if you don't have Niv-Mizzet out or stuff like that. If you're facing those things quite a bit, then it might be worth trying to find a spot for it. Snapcaster again cut just due to synergy. Trinket Mage is kind of the worst of our artifact tutors. It's still really good. It's just it doesn't do as much. Tezzeret, the same. It doesn't quite hit everything. It's still really good.
Yeah, basically for the like generic good cards, if you don't really need to interact much with your opponents and they're not particularly fast, then you can just take out some of the interaction we have and put those cards in instead, just to increase like your density of powerful draws. But usually in competitive EDH, you're gonna encounter a good deal of required interaction, so to speak.
Yep. So I'm really happy with where this is. It's the only downside that I see from this deck and the challenge it's going to have from the start is that it wants to have like 2 or 3 mana rocks in its opening hand. And it wants to be able to get a turn 3 Niv-Mizzet pretty reliably. And that's kind of the turn that you need to be doing stuff or you need to be interacting. So I don't feel it's really built to be a grindy deck.
I'm not sure. It really depends on how much grind power you're actually going to get from just Niv-Mizzet himself, which I do feel is quite a lot.
Yeah, that is true. Niv-Mizzet, it does have the commander-centric portion that you have to deal with. It's like Kess. You don't do much without them in play. You were saying something, Tomer?
I just love the fact that you draw so many cards. Not even off your own instants and sorceries, off everybody's.
Yeah.
So it's insane. I love it.
I do like that too. All right. Well, that is a pretty good start for Niv-Mizzet combo.
As usual with these live brews, there's a good chance we missed some stuff here and there, but just consider this as like a sort of canvas to start working with, a form of first draft that you can look at, make your own changes to. Always make your own changes to competitive decks.
Yeah, you're always going to need to adjust it for your meta, but then also for your personal play style, as well as your familiarity with those styles. So if you're really great at a control deck, there's going to be some changes that you're going to make to this to make it more amenable to your play style. And yeah, have fun. That's the other part that you always have to do.
Yeah.
All right. Tomer, I think we'll be handing this off to you, and you'll be working on some budget options.
Yeah, I'm excited to work on it. I really appreciate the entire list, including the maybe pile. A lot of the maybes there are kind of like auto includes for my end, because it's just budget wise. Like the Goblin Electromancer is going to be my budget Baral, for example, and little things like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun to work with, and it seems like there's a lot of potential on the budget aspect of just building like probably a slower Niv-Mizzet, probably a grindier Niv-Mizzet, just out of necessity, just because we won't have access to all the faster mana rocks and ways to get him out consistently on turn 3. So there's going to be changes, but I think it's going to work really well for a more casual environment.
Nice. Yeah. I'm looking forward to what you're going to come up with. Definitely.
And with that, thanks for joining us. Again, I'm Cameron. Been here with Sigi and Tomer. Have a good day.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.